The Aztecs were located in Mesoamerica, specifically the Valley of Mexico. They were built in capital cities on Lake
Texcoco.
The twin capitals were
Tenochtitlan
and
Tlatelolco.
These were located in modern-day Mexico City. 3 bridges, or crossways, connected both capitals to the surrounding cities, which allowed people to easily access their capitals. The Aztec cities were formatted in a grid system of streets and canals, which facilitated the transportation and trade. The empire was surrounded by the Gulf of Mexico on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other.
What many people did not realize is that the Aztecs did not start out as a strong empire, but actually began as the Mexican tribe of hunter-gatherers. They arrived in Mesoamerica in the 13th century. During the time of their arrival, the dominating power, the Toltecs, were in the midst of collapse. This opened the void for the Mexicas to eventually rise to power. According to the legend, the Mexicas saw an eagle perched on a cactus near Lake
Texcoco.
They interpreted this as a sign to settle there. In 1325, the capital
Tenochtitlan
was established. In 1428, under the rule of Itzcoatl, a 3-way alliance was formed between the city-states
Texcoco, Tacuba,
and Tenochtitlan. In order to defeat the Tepanec city-state, the alliance defeated the
Tepanec,
which led to the Aztecs officially becoming the dominating power of Mesoamerica. Montezuma was the next emperor and started his rule in 1440. Many people see him as the father of the Aztec Empire.
When the Aztecs were simply the Mexica tribe of hunters, they were an ethnic state led by a ruler called the Hatoni. As Mexico evolved and grew into an empire, each city-state they conquered was called an Atepetel and had its own Hatoni to rule. The Hatoni was from a noble class and royal lineage. They directed the religious, political, and social obligations of the Atepetel they ruled. Every Atepetel was composed of a Calpoli, which was a group of 100 families that were in charge of the land allocation, tax collection, and local religious life. They also specialized in crafts like ceramics. War was very important in the Aztec society. When a new ruler came into power, they waged war on neighboring cities to legitimize their rule. Large estates and slaves were granted to warrior class as a result of the conquests. Interestingly, the Aztec monarch was considered part of the warrior class and did not have an absolute power. The Aztecs did not have an elaborate bureaucracy, but instead had a council of powerful aristocrats that would make important decisions, including who would rule next.
The Aztec Empire was agriculturally based and had a barter economy. Some of its main products include maize, beans, squash, cacao, and cotton. Crops were grown by using chinapas, which were floating gardens that trapped soil and then used to provide maize, vegetables, and fruits. Although chinapas provided food for market, their tribute system was very important. It ordered the Aztec lands to pay heavy tributes and was used to supply 1/4 of the capital's food requirement in order to satisfy the growing population. The tribute system promoted communication and infrastructure for conquered lands to be the capitals and allowed surrounding lands to flourish. The Aztecs depended on their conquered territories for agricultural production. A specialized class of merchants controlled long-distance trade. Because there was no domesticated animals, the Aztecs had to trade lightweight objects that would be transported by hand. The merchants were very important to trade and the markets. Aztec markets were so elaborate and abundant, even Hernan Cortez wrote them in his journal.
One square in particular is twice as big as that of Salmanaka and completely surrounded by arcades where there are daily more than 60,000 folk buying and selling. Every kind of merchandise, as may be met within this very land, is for sale. There is nothing found in all the land which is not sold in these markets, for over and above what I have mentioned, there are so many and such various things that account for their very number. I cannot detail them.
Merchants had special privileges that were separate from privileges of the upper class, and they had lived in a separate part of the city. Many merchants were angry because even as they were as wealthy as the upper class, they were not treated as equals. Most people in the Aztec Empire were farmers that lived in a city outskirts. Instead of credit or money, Aztec families mainly used cacao beans, cotton cloth, and quills of gold to pay for food.
Religion was very important to the Aztecs. In fact, in the diary of one of Hernan Cortez's crew members' journals, it reads,
Montezuma agreed, but said that before he left, he had to pray and make certain offerings to atone for permitting us to see his gods. and for being the cause of the dishonor we had done them by speaking ill of them.
In this journal passage, it appears the Spaniards insulted the Aztec gods, so Montezuma II wanted to pray for forgiveness. The Aztecs believed the universe was separated into three parts: heaven, the world they lived in, and the underworld. Also, they believed that every human activity and natural element had its own deity, so that there were many gods and each was dualistic. Was their main chief god, who took the form of a hummingbird. It controlled the sun and war, which were the basis of Aztec society.
Quetzalcoatl.
Looked like a feathered serpent and was the god of learning, priesthood, and civilization. In honor of the gods, the Aztecs performed large-scale human sacrifices because they believed that human hearts fueled the gods and helped the gods perform their tasks. The Aztecs built two temples, one in
Tenochtitlan.
and the other in.
Tlatelolco.
The twin temples honored.
Huitzilopochtli. Tlalola.
The two gods were in control of war and agriculture, which was the basis of Aztec society.
Religion was a very important aspect of Aztec society and the center of civilization for the Aztec people. In fact, cities served as ceremonial centers. They used art to record the importance of religion and warfare. They played music and dance every day in special ceremonies to try and please the gods. Also, games and sports were important to use. The loser would be publicly sacrificed. They also created an elaborate calendar and writing system called Nahuatl. They also had a very rigid hierarchical society. The priests were elite and controlled all important religious rituals. Military elites received land grants and tributes from commoners as payment for their services. And the merchants were considered middle class. At the very bottom were the farmers and slaves. There was a very large gap between the rich and poor. Women were highly regarded in society and were in charge of the house. They were also seen as founders of the family lineage. Although they were hammered for childbirth and had some legal rights, they held absolutely no political power. The Aztecs would often marry other people to form alliances. In a technological aspect, causeways and canals that were used promoted easy trade for the Aztecs. Metallurgy or wheels, so Aztecs relied on simple stone tools and levers. The atalil was a popular weapon created that was easier to throw than a spear. Lastly, the Aztecs' interest in math and astronomy allowed them to create a calendar composed of 18 months with 20 days per month.
In 1517, Hernandez de Cordova was sent from Cuba to explore and landed in the Yucatan Peninsula. When he came back to Cuba, he told of the gold he had seen. As a result, Hernan Cortez was sent to explore. In 1519, Cortez landed in Mesoamerica and learned about the rule of Montezuma II in the Aztec Empire. When he and his crew landed, they were looked upon and treated as gods by the Aztecs. The Spanish responded by using superior weaponry to murder thousands of Aztecs and kidnap Montezuma II. Montezuma II later died in custody, so Cuauhtemoc, the new ruler, pushed out the Spaniards. In 1521, the Spanish retaliated by allying with neighboring city-states and defeated the Aztecs. The combination of the Spaniards' superior weaponry and newly introduced diseases wiped out the Aztec Empire.